Hello everyone, and welcome to BBB News. I'm Jenny.
I'm Chloe.
And I'm also Chloe, and we are reporters for tonight's broadcast.
Tonight we are going over the top alien stories from the 60s. I'm Chloe Rendell, and I'm a news reporter for BBB. For today's episode, we will be hearing stories from 3 individuals who have encountered aliens. Our first story was back in 1961 on a chicken farm in Eagle River. His name is Joe, and here he is today, joining us to tell us the story of his encounter. Hi Joe, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
So Joe, can you explain to the world what happened to you back in 1961?
Well, I was feeding over my chickens on my farm when I turned around to get more chicken food, and there was something floating above my lawn, shining a bright light down on me. I walked out from the coop curious on what could have been shining such a bright light. It didn't make any sort of sound, so when I saw what I did, I was terrified and confused. I had absolutely no idea what it could have been. There was no way it could have been an airplane because it was shaped like a sphere. It was a flying saucer.
Do you know what was inside this farm?
After flying above me for about 5 minutes, it finally landed. This saw a door on the side of the aircraft. It opened like the hood of a car. Then 3 short little green men stepped out of it and started walking towards me. That's when I knew they were aliens, because of how really ugly their faces were, no offense to them. I was shaking like crazy though, thinking this was the end and I'd never see my little pup dinosaur or my friend Chunk again.
Wow, that must have been terrifying. When they came towards you, what did they say?
They were strange little creatures. They didn't harm me or nothing. They didn't even speak.
Well, if they didn't say anything, then what did they do?
They gave me this jug. I was confused at first, but then figured out they were looking for some water, so that's what I gave them. I filled it with water from the hose because I was way too scared to go into my house thinking they'd follow me and see my little dog Dinosaur. Dinosaur's scared of everything, so he would have been crying like a baby. Once I filled up the jug, I walked it back and handed it to one of the aliens, and he handed me a stack of discs that looked like pancakes. Here, I brought one for you today.
Oh wow.
They were grilling them inside the aircraft, and I guess I wanted to thank me for the water. I didn't say a word, so I just nodded my head.
What did they taste like?
They were absolutely disgusting.
Did anything happen after that?
Well, after that, they handed me pancakes. They just waddled back to their aircraft and got back in, waved goodbye and went. The saucer slowly lifted back into the sky and shot off faster than light speed. I haven't seen their face.
They waved goodbye?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The whole experience was really scary and strange. I mean, my chickens wouldn't eat for days after that.
Well, that truly is an experience. Well, that's all the time we have for with Mr. Joe Simonson anyway. Thank you, Joe, for sharing your experience with the world.
Of course, thanks man for having me.
In 1961, Joe Simonson reported his encounter. The Air Force investigated the event and concluded that Simonson had truly believed his story was true, but there was no way to really prove that the events actually occurred. Simonson gave the Air Force the pancakes the aliens had given him in return for the jug of water. They were sent to the Food and Drug Laboratory to be examined. After they were examined, they were found to be made of all accessible sources from Earth: starch, buckwheat, soybeans, wheat bran, and hydrogenated fat. The case was then declared unexplained by the United States Air Force. Thank you folks for tuning in today. Next up is a good friend of mine off to report the next alien encounter.
Wow, that was some story of yours, Chloe.
Thank you, it was definitely one to remember.
Now let me introduce myself. I'm your next reporter, whose name is also Chloe, but don't worry, I'm the more exciting one. Anyways, I'll get on to the story. On the night of August 21st, 1960, a large farm family called the Suttons and their friend arrived breathlessly at the Hawkins police station in southwestern Kentucky. Their story is one of the most detailed alien encounters on record and is known for their many witnesses. Our guest that we will be having today is Billy Ray Taylor, a close friend of this big family. Hello, Billy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks for asking.
So you're here today to talk about your encounter with these aliens. Can you explain what happened to you back in 1960?
I can. At about 7 p.m. on a hot Sunday evening, I was fetching water from the backyard. Well, when I saw a silvery object that was really bright, with an exhaust of all colors of the rainbow. It came silently towards the house and passed over it. Then it stopped in the air, and then dropped straight towards the ground. An hour later, I was alerted by the dogs barking. I went to the back door and saw a small alien-like creature. About 3.5 feet tall, it had an oversized head, almost perfectly round. Its arms extended almost to the ground. Its oversized eyes glowed with a yellowish light. I was terrified for my life. So me and one of the Suttons grabbed a shotgun and a rifle and fired at the alien. I saw it do a flip and then it scrambled upright and fled into the darkness.
You seem to have a very close encounter with these alien creatures. Did anything happen to you after?
Not right after, but a few hours later I stepped under the small overhanging roof, and those behind me saw a claw-like hand reach down and touch my hair. Just like this. I heard everyone scream and the Suttons pull me back inside, while one of those Suttons shot above the overhang and then at another similar creature in a nearby tree. It floated to the ground and then scurried into the woods.
Were you trapped inside the house, or were you able to get help?
The Suttons and I moved inside and spent several hours listening to movements. Hearing mostly occasional scratches on the roof, at 11 p.m., everyone decided to run for their cars and immediately started driving to the Hopkinsville police station at top speed.
Did the police do anything about your encounter?
They searched my house and didn't find any evidence of scratch marks or anything left behind from the aliens. It's almost as if it never happened. The only evidence left was shotgun holes.
My gosh, thank you for sharing your experience. I hope you're doing well after that scary encounter of yours.
Yes, I am, ma'am. Thank you for having me here.
Of course.
Our next story is a shocking one. We will meet with Betty Andriansen as she discusses her suspected encounter with an alien on January 25th, 1967. Thank you for joining us, Betty.
Thank you. I think it's finally time that I started talking about what happened.
So, what did these strange beings look like?
They were about 4 feet tall, and the leader was about a foot taller. They walked in a hopping motion. They had pear-shaped heads, wide eyes, small ears, and noses. Their mouths were just small slits that never moved because they communicated telepathically. They wore a long blue jacket with a wide belt and the logo of a bird on their sleeves.
Why have you just come out now with your story after so many years?
The aliens hypnotized me to only remember certain parts until a certain date. It was only recently that I remember the rest of the story.
Thank you so much for joining us, Betty. Your story is definitely an interesting one. After Betty shared her story, she was investigated to find out how true her story actually is. During the investigation, Betty was subjected to a character reference check, 2 lie detector tests, a psychiatric review, 14 sessions of hypnosis to try and figure out if she was telling the truth or not. The conclusion was shocking. The stories both Betty and her daughter told had all of the same basic details. This, along with her psychiatric exam, which concluded her daughter were both sane individuals, makes this story even more unbelievable and is one of the top unexplained alien encounters to this day. Next week, where we discuss one of my favorite topics, how to make a birdhouse. That's my favorite too.
And mine.
Thank you for joining us on BBB News.